All right, for these notes, we're going to switch over to surface area of three-dimensional shapes. Remember, volume filled up the inside of a shape. Surface area does exactly what it says it's going to do. It covers the area of the surfaces. So you can actually remember that when you are wrapping things up and covering the outside, that's surface area versus filling things up on the inside. All right, so before we go any further, at the top of your note taker, I want you to put that definition. That surface area is the sum of the areas of all surfaces. In other words, if you were to take and unfold your shape into flat pieces, then you would take the area from each flat piece, add it together, and that would give you the surface area of that three-dimensional object. But our shapes tend to be given in 3D format to where you can still pick out the surface area of your surfaces, but through a different formula. All right, so for the first example, we are dealing with prisms and cylinders in this note taker. Again, we have triangular prisms and rectangular prisms, and then the cylinders, it's separate one. All right, we're going to find the surface area of the rectangular prism that is over there. And you notice you only have 3 numbers because that's all you really need. If you look on your formula sheet, it does give you the longest formula of all, but it's the easiest one to do, even though it's longer, right? And that is 2 length times width plus 2 length times height plus 2 width times height. All right, and if you think about it, a rectangular prism has 6 sides. 2 of them are exactly the same, so that's where the 2's come from, and you're using your pieces. So when we look at our picture, we want to label which numbers are the length, the width, and the height first, so that you don't mess anything up. Remember, length is your left to right number, so that would be the 5 in this picture. Width would be your side piece, so that would be the 3, and height is the straight up and down part. Once you have your pieces labeled, then you just simply substitute them in the formula and then do the formula using order of operations. So if I take the letters out, I'm putting the numbers in. So it would be 2 times 5 times 3 plus 2 times 5 times 7 plus 2 times 3 times 7. Okay, and mathematically you have to do multiplication before you do addition. So you're going to do 3 separate multiplication parts, and then you're going to add those 3 numbers together. So 2 times 5 times 3 is 30. 2 times 5 times 10 is 70. And 2 times 3 times 7 is 42. Right, so now that you have those 3 numbers, you're going to add them together, and that's going to give you the surface area. Surface area is SA. When you add them together, you get 142. Your units for surface area are the same as regular area. Because it uses the word area, it's always going to have a squared. So it's 142 feet squared. That would cover every single surface in this shape. All right, for number 2, we have a cylinder. And if you look on your formula sheet or use your formula sheet to help you out, the cylinder formula has pi involved. Right? So the formula is SA equals 2 pi r squared, which that's the 2 circles right there, plus 2 pi RH. That 2 pi RH comes from the middle of the cylinder, or the part that wraps around. Like if you're thinking about a can, that's the label that would go around the can. Right? The circles are the 2 pi r squareds. All right, so then looking at your problem, we need the radius and the height, and your picture clearly has both of those numbers, so you have to put them in the right spot. So 2 times 3.14, the radius in the picture is 5, so 5 squared, plus 2 times 3.14 times 5, and the height of the cylinder is 9. Now, in terms of order of operations, you want to do all the multiplying pieces separately and then add those 2 together. So first section, second section, then add the 2 values together. It does say to round to the nearest tenth, so you can round at this stage right here. You don't have to wait all the way till the final answer to round. So when we take and do the 2 pi r squared part, start with your exponents. 5 squared is 25 times 3.14 times 2. You should come up with 157 off of that multiplication part. Right? Then when you go to the second section, 2 times 3.14 times 5 times 9 is going to give you 282.6 when you round it to that tenths place. Then we're going to add the 2 values together. So the surface area for this cylinder is going to be 439.6 meters, and because it's surface area, you're going to put a square. Okay, volume is the only one that gets a 3. Everybody else gets a 2 or nothing. All right, so now looking at the problems below, we're going to practice some more with some other sized cylinders and prisms, right? You'll notice that numbers 3 and 6 are triangular prisms. One's laying down and one's standing up, right? So that does make things a little differently because the formula comes out a little differently, right? But it's still going to be the same process. You're still trying to cover all of the surfaces, right? So I will do one of each one of these on the bottom with you, and then your job is going to be to finish the rest of this worksheet on the bottom and then turn it over on the back and complete the problems on the back, right? So I will take and do numbers 4, 5, and 6, right? And you can take and do 1, 2, and 3. All right, so for number 4, we have a cylinder. It's laying down. Now notice they gave you the diameter right here. So you're going to need to cut that in half so you can use your radius. And then if you were to stand this thing up, the height would be the 4 that it's laying down on. Right now it's laying down, so you have to take that into consideration when you're doing your math. All right, so we have 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. All right, and let's plug in our pieces. Pi is 3.14. The radius is half of that 4, so that'd be 2 squared plus 2 times 3.14 times 2, and then the height is the 4 that it's laying down on. All right, so now we want to do our multiplication in chunks. So we want to do this chunk and then add those two values together. Right? So when we come through with 2 squared first, it's just 4 times 3.14 times 2. Right? We're going to come out with 25.1. Remember to round as you go. And then when you take and do 2 times 3.14 times 2 times 4, the second chunk, you're going to come out with 50.2. Right? And when you take and add those two sections together, your surface area for this cylinder is going to be 75.3 millimeters squared. Okay. All right, for number 5, you have the rectangular prism, right, which does have the longer formula to it, right, but it's not going to make anything any worse. Right? So if we take and use the 2LW plus 2LH plus 2WH, right? That's what the formula says. We need to label the L, the W, and the H first. The length, remember, goes left to right, so that's your 5 on the bottom. Width is 5.6, which is on the side. Height is 8. So when you plug in your numbers, you're going to have 2 times 5 times 5.6 plus 2 times 5 times 8 plus 2 times 5.6 times 8. Okay, and this is a little bit of a longer formula when you first start plugging things in, but then it shortens very quickly. So you want to do your 3 sections of multiplying first and get those 3 numbers. Right? So when we take and multiply the first section, we get 56. When we multiply the second section, we get 80. And when you multiply the third section, you get 89.6. Now add those 3 together. So the surface area for number 5 is going to come out being 225.6 miles, MI is miles, squared. All right, so that's what number 5 looks like. All right, so now let's go ahead and switch over to number 6 and take a look at the formula that we have there. Right, and the formula for a triangular prism looks different, and there's some different pieces in it that we're going to have to take into consideration. All right, I'm going to go ahead and erase this piece so I can show you what I'm going to do here. Okay, the formula for a triangular prism for surface area is H times P plus 2 times capital B. All right, now you know that the H stands for height. That's talking about height of the triangle. Okay, this whole piece right here is talking about the triangle. The height of the triangle, and the P stands for the perimeter of the triangle, which means all 3 numbers around the outside edges added together. Then over here, the capital B, remember, stands for area of the base. And the base of a triangular prism is a triangle, so you have to deal with a triangle quite a bit, right? And the best way to do this so that you can get everything where it needs to be is outline one of the triangles and label all the pieces you need to. Well, this top triangle has the 7 and the 10 labeled. The 12.2 that you see on the bottom is going to come up here and be that piece as well. So now your top triangle has all the numbers you could possibly use for it. All right, so now when we're plugging in to our formula, the height of the triangle is the 10. Okay. The perimeter of the triangle would be adding up 7 plus 10 plus 12.2. Right, so 10 plus 7 is 17, plus 12.2 would be 29.2. That's the P, the value that you have to figure out. It's never going to be located in the actual picture. You have to add those numbers up. plus 2 times, now we got to find area of the base. This is where you come off to the side and you have to do 1/2 little b little h just for the triangle. So again, only use the top triangle to help you out. Okay. The little b is the base of the triangle, so that would be the 7. And then the h of the triangle would be the 10. Okay, 7 times 10 is 70. Half of 70 is 35. So 35 is your big B. That's what's going to go here. Right, and there's actually a mistake made so far in this formula because I've forgotten one little piece that you guys are going to be tempted to do as well. The h that sits in the formula right here is not the height of the single triangle, it's the height of the entire prism. So this is, when we look at the h and the p, this is the triangular prism. The big B deals with just this triangle on the bottom, right? So the height of the actual prism is not 10, it's this 5 right here. It always connects the two triangles together, right? So be careful with this. This formula is very tricky in terms of which letter to use for which triangle piece. Know that that first H is your height of the entire prism. The big B has the H for the triangle in it. So you have to separate those two thought processes. All right, so now once you've got the numbers the way you want them to be, and they are correct at this point, take and do 29.2 times 5, which is going to give you 146, plus 2 times 35 is 70. Remember, you have to do your multiplication chunks first, and then now add them together. All right, so when we add the two values together, we get a surface area of 216 millimeters squared. All right, I'm actually going to go ahead and jump up to number 3 and do that one with you as well, because the triangular prisms are the hardest ones to do surface area for. You're not going to struggle as much with the other ones because the formulas are pretty straightforward. It's these triangular prisms that you've got to pull your pieces apart and get them right before you can get to the answer. So take the formula we just did, and now we're going to jump up to number 3, and I'll do that one with you. You have some more triangular prisms on the back side of this note taker that you'll be able to practice on your own with. All right, so now looking at the triangular prism here, okay, the triangular base is this triangle right here. Okay, the piece that connects the two triangles together, this 10, is the height of your entire prism, right? It's always going to be the connecting top and bottom pieces. This triangular prism is not sitting on its base. It's actually laying down. Okay, so you have to think about that as you take and consider your formula. All right, so when we go to plug into the formula, the H value is going to be how tall is the whole prism. That's the 10. So we're going to have 10 in the H spot. Now for P, it's the perimeter of the base. So this triangle right here, we need to know what are the outside measurements. Well, it's a 5, a 6, and this is a 5 because you can see it in the back. That's also 5. That 4 is pointing to inside the triangle. We'll use him in a minute, but not right now. For the perimeter, we're adding 5 plus 5 plus 6. That makes 16. So that takes care of that first piece. Now we want to do area of the base, which is area of this one triangle and nothing else. So remember that it's 1/2 base times height just for the triangle. The base of the triangle is 6. The height of the triangle is now that 4, okay, because that shows you how tall the triangle is. 6 times 4 is 24. Half of that is 12. Right? So when we take and put the 12 in the big B spot, we now have our formula filled in. Right, so now we're ready to do the multiplication piece and then adding our values together. 10 times 16 is 160. 2 times 12 is 24. We're going to add those two pieces together. Okay, so for the final answer to this top triangular prism, right, in number 3, let me get rid of this here, you're going to have a surface area of 184 meters squared. All right, so be very careful with those because I'm warning you and telling you now that that is the hardest shape to do in terms of surface area. The other ones, yes, the formulas are longer, but they're not difficult. This is a short formula, and it's the hardest one to do. So take your time with it, know what your pieces are, and we'll continue to practice with it in class. But your job at this point is to finish the rest of the problems on the front side that we didn't do and all of the problems on the back side. And then we'll see what kind of questions you have in class.